กองทุนการเงินระหว่างประเทศหรือ IMF เริ่มดำเนินการมาตั้งแต่เดือนธันวาคมปีพ.ศ. 2488 หรือ 67 ปีที่แล้ว ปัจจุบันมีสมาชิก 188 ประเทศ หน้าที่สำคัญของ IMF คือส่งเสริมความร่วมมือทางการเงินระหว่างประเทศส่งเสริมความมั่นคงด้านอัตราแลกเปลี่ยนช่วยเหลือประเทศที่เผชิญกับวิกฤตเศรษฐกิจรวมทั้งสร้างเงินสำรองระหว่างประเทศที่เป็นเงินกองกลางไม่ใช่ของประเทศใดประเทศหนึ่งเพื่อให้กู้ยืมแก่ประเทศที่ประสบปัญหาเศรษฐกิจปัจจุบันมีเงินทุนสำรองพื้นฐาน 364,000 ล้านดอลลาร์สหรัฐประเทศที่กู้ยืมเงินจาก IMF รายใหญ่ในช่วงนี้คือกรีซโปรตุเกสและไอร์แลนด์
ASEAN as a whole, would it be seriously affected by European problems?
It's interesting that you say ASEAN as a whole.
Yes.
You regard that as an economic zone, as a region, as a...
Yes, already. I think you said in Tokyo that intra-regional trade has increased tremendously.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
And I think you see ASEAN as a potentially very strong integrated part.
Correct.
You see that?
Correct. And despite the fact that there are great discrepancies within the zone.
Yes.
You know, in ASEAN you have some...
Indonesia on the one hand and Laos, you know, one of the biggest and the smallest.
And Singapore and Myanmar.
Yes.
You know, completely different per capita GDP and sources of growth from different origins. So it's a fascinating economic zone and one that is, I think, cautious enough not to rush to solutions, not to put in place a currency union, for instance.
So you are saying that ASEAN should not follow the EU pattern of integration? You think that EU had made the mistakes ASEAN should learn from?
I think that given the discrepancies, the differences, the competitiveness levels, the development steps of countries, and the fact that it is such a rich but diverse economic zone, it would be very adventurous to go into single currency at this stage. Maybe one day, but now it's probably way premature.
But you think ASEAN should learn from EC in what way? To avoid the kind of crisis that is facing Europe.
I think ASEAN is rightly so looking at ways of strengthening the links and providing a degree of short-term defense if needed. I think the Chiang Mai arrangement that has been put in place.
CMIM, the Chiang Mai Initiative.
That's right, yeah. Together with the AMRO, which is this group of economists that are attentive to the development in the zone. That is a way to reinforce the zone and to say, okay, if there is trouble somewhere, we are together and we will be able to put in place a short-term financial instrument to support an economy that is in trouble. So I think it's a very, it's a different form of evolution, if you will, but a very interesting one and more region-specific.
So you don't think ASEAN will end up with a crisis like the Eurozone? Because it doesn't have a common currency.
I wish I had a crystal ball to tell you the future, but I think that the zone has gone through a lot of trouble 10 years ago, right? A little more than 10 years ago, 1997, 1998.
Yes.
Those were tough times.
Yes.
And as a result of that, the economies that went through the tough times are much stronger today. Whether you look at the corporate, whether you look at the banking, whether you look at the public sector, they all have strengthened, they all have deleveraged, they all have a much, much healthier debt to GDP or debt to equity ratio. And that makes them more agile and more likely to resist crisis.
Burma? Are you looking seriously at Burma, which is trying to ask for IMF technical assistance maybe? And the overall picture seems to be quite encouraging. Is IMF helping Burma to go on the path of real reform?
Absolutely. We have been helping Burma, Myanmar, whatever
is
the appropriate name, recently and will continue to do so because of this currency regimes that they have, which need to be harmonized. And I'm very pleased to tell you that I will be very shortly signing an agreement with the Central Bank of Thailand that will establish a technical assistance center here in Bangkok that will be servicing Myanmar and Laos. And we thought that it would make an awful lot of sense to do it from Thailand and to be able to, dispatch expertise and mission teams on the ground in Myanmar out of Bangkok. So we are very, very happy with that.
The exchange rate policy of Myanmar has changed, and it seems that a lot of questions still remain. How do you see the policy in terms of the new exchange rate direction?
You know, I'm not the ultimate expert on exchange rate coordination and aggregation, because that's what's needed. At the moment, they have different exchange rates.
Yeah.
And there is a need to bring them into one single exchange rate. So that's a gradual process where our teams of experts are helping.
You just met the Thai Prime Minister today?
Yes, I did.
Yes. What did you tell her about Thailand?
Well, I said thank you.
Thank you for what?
Thank you for being such a good partner.
Yeah.
By making available some office space at the Central Bank of Thailand so that we could have our technical assistance center to service Myanmar and Laos. Thank you for being one of the Asia Pacific, the Southeast Asia contributors to the enlarged resources of the IMF in order to serve the entire community in case there is trouble. Thank you for having ratified the quota and the governance reform that makes Asia a more prominent member in the IMF community. So I did express my gratitude to Thailand and to her in particular, and I told her that she was a fantastic leader. That was women complicity, if I may say.
Yes, very much so.
ประเทศไทยเป็นสมาชิก IMF ตั้งแต่วันที่ 3 พฤษภาคม 2492 ประเทศไทยเคยกู้เงินจาก IMF ครั้งแรกเมื่อปี 2527 ในสมัยพลเอกเปรมติณสุรานนท์วงเงิน $300 ล้านเพื่อแก้ปัญหาเศรษฐกิจตกต่ำและครั้งล่าสุดในปี 2540 สมัยพลเอกชวลิตยงใจยุทธวงเงิน 17,000 ล้านเพื่อฟื้นฟูเศรษฐกิจจากวิกฤตการณ์ต้มยำกุ้ง
Thailand's economy. I think IMF has also studied Thailand's current economy quite closely.
Right.
How do you see it?
Well, we see a very positive outlook for the country. It's an economy that reacts very quickly, very strongly as well. It went down at the time of the terrible flood that was suffered last year in 2011, and it has bounced back very quickly. The monetary and fiscal policies are sensible. I think it's very important to keep the fiscal situation stable and healthy, and it should continue to be so.
So you see a rebound, a very...
I would call it a V shape. You know,
V-shape.
It went down. It went from 8% in 2010 down to almost zero in 2011 because of all the disruption, and then it's back anywhere between 5.5% and 6%. So it's a vroom, hop again, and the strategy of your Prime Minister and the government to make sure that growth is as inclusive as possible in order to reach out to the entire population of Thailand is very laudable.
So you call Thailand's recovery a V-shaped recovery, huh?
Yes.
Huh? Not W.
No, it's a V.
It's a V. as the first woman IMF director. And in fact, you made history by being the first woman in many other jobs previously. How tough is it being a woman in such an important job? What keeps you awake at night these days at the IMF? Europe, America, or Latin America? So you are ready for any new crisis, any new development that would affect the whole world.